about 40 minutes. And if you aren't planning to stay still, please turn off your camera. So getting yourselves into an upright position. If you're unable to do so, I can't see everybody. But if you need to recline, try to do it in a way that will support wakefulness. I knew somebody who actually had a back problem, and she put her arm up. And when I was having back problems, I had my knees up. So whenever I got drowsy, my knees would go over a little bit. I had a little bit of support so it wouldn't hurt my back when it moved over. But I'm just giving a hint. So anyone who's sick, can't sit up for any reason, reclining is fine. Laying on your back is fine with your knees bent. But the optimum position for stillness and wakefulness is sitting upwards. So bringing your awareness to your whole body and checking your body. I'm assuming most of you have had experience with meditation, so just check to see that this is a position that you're able to hold for 40 minutes. Go through your body. And just check for tension in the body and remind the body to be at ease, just inviting it with gentleness. Getting an overall sense of the body. This can be done by the sense of touch. So we feel where the contact of the body is. Probably the most prominent will be feeling the weight of the body pressing against whatever's supporting it. And with your eyes closed, just very lightly closed, you're able to sense the body through touch. Sensing the touch of the air, the temperature of the air, and the touch of the cloth, the clothing against the body. And any sensations that may be either on the surface or further inwards. And we'll start scanning the body from the base. And as we go through the body, little by little, I invite you to notice any tension, and then gently see if you can release the tension. Encourage the body to be at ease. So gradually bringing the awareness upwards, starting at the base, starting at the feet. Even the toes, just allowing everything to relax. You might check the feet to make sure they're in a good position. As we're doing the scanning, if you feel like you need to shift a little bit, then that's good. And bringing the awareness upwards over the legs. And the thighs, the buttocks. Again, sensing that contact with whatever's supporting the body. And up over the hips. Sensing the low back. And just take care to check that the low back has that slight inward curve, not slouching. Moving around and sensing that abdomen. You might feel that expanding and contracting, actually being pushed down and out by the lungs, the diaphragm actually. Also the lungs, the chest, expanding and contracting. Sense the sides of the body. This is pulsing of the body. Or maybe a tide, like the tide coming in and moving out. Just at its own natural rhythm. This is just nature, like the tides, like the wind. Also the back, a slight movement, and even in the back from the breathing. And the shoulders. Just let the weight of the world drop off those shoulders. And the arms should be parallel with the sides of the body. The upper arms. And the elbows not too far back, not too far forward, so there supports the uprightness and the openness of the chest. Hands may be on your lap or on the thighs. Just a time for the hands to be at ease, no work to do. just to be at ease and be still. And bringing the awareness upwards over the arms again, up to the shoulders. And seeing the neck at a neutral position, not too far back or forward. Supporting the head, well centered and balanced. And bringing the awareness up the back of the head, and the sides of the head, all the way up to the top. And then gradually bring the awareness drifting down over the forehead, allowing the forehead to be at ease. And around the eyes, our eyes relaxed. And if you need to, leave the eyes just very slightly open, letting a little bit of light in. You're with the gaze downwards, that's okay. It's helpful for wakefulness. And sensing the jaws relaxed, the teeth, top and bottom teeth lightly touching one another, not clenching. And the tongue occupying the mouth, just at ease, tip of the tongue touching the front teeth. My lips lightly touching. At some point in your meditation, you may notice a smile on your face. And that's perfectly wonderful. And continue scanning the body at this point. Or you can bring the awareness to the breath. You start out with really getting a sense of the whole breath, body expanding and contracting with the breath. You might sense the flow of the air through the nostrils. Starting out with a broader sense of the breath until the mind is well settled. You might call this wind, movement of the air, expanding and contracting the body. And when the mind is well settled, you might settle in one spot. The awareness can settle in one spot. And it's very natural for the mind to drift into thought. When that happens, very carefully, gently bring the awareness back to the body. No matter how many times you need to do this, just with kindness, patience, gentleness. And we'll continue in silence for another 20 minutes. So move slowly. If you need to move out of position, bringing your hands into Anjali. And you can reflect back a little bit about how the meditation went for you, what went well, what could use a little work. You've been invited to share some Dhamma. Ayya Suvijjana is here. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namassami. So just took refuge in the Triple Gem, and I hope you all are continuously doing so. I'm going to speak tonight about a word, apamada. This has been translated as heedfulness and diligence. It has I've looked at quite a few Dhammapada translations. I think Dhammapada may be the most popular or most frequently translated collection of teachings. And it's all in, the actual Dhammapada is all in verses. But there's a whole chapter or book that is the Apamada Waga, or the chapter on heedfulness or diligence. This word is also translated as thoughtfulness, carefulness, watchfulness, vigilance, earnestness, and zeal. I don't know how many different translations of the Dhammapada in our library alone that we have. And then we also are blessed with the translation that Ayya Suvijjana has done very diligently or heedfully over a long period of time. This electronic copy I have of the Gathas. So I'm going to recite some Pali, and then I'm going to read Ayya Suvijjana's translation of this. I'm not going to read the whole Vaga. I just selected verses 21 to 23, and that's the first 3 pairs of verses. So here's the Pali. Apamado amata padam, pamado machuno padam, apamata na miyanti, ye panmata yata mata. So the translation of that is, heedfulness is the way to the deathless. Heedlessness is the way to death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are as if dead. So that's the first pair of verses, or the first verse. Atam, we say sato nyata nyatwa apama damhi pandita, apamade pamodanti, aryam nam gochare rata. And this is the wise, having clearly understood this about heedfulness, rejoice in heedfulness, delighting in the noble one's resort. Hey, Jai, Jai no Satatika, Nicham Dalha Para Kama, Usanti Dira Nibanam, Yoga Kemam Anuttaram. They, practicing jhana, persevering, always endeavoring, wise, resolute, attain nibbana, the unequaled security from bondage. So I'm going to read these verses again, and I'm going to, in English, and I'm going to leave you for about a minute to really ponder this, think about it, reflect on it. This is I'd like to start introducing this concept of reflecting on Dhamma as a meditation. So we'll reflect just for a minute on the verses. Heedfulness is the way to the deathless. Heedlessness is the way of death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are are as if dead. The wise, having clearly understood this about heedfulness, rejoice in heedfulness, delighting in the noble one's resort. They practicing jhana, persevering, always endeavoring, wise, resolute, attain nibbana, the unequaled security from bondage. So the people will submit these verses to memory. And it's something that we can do if a verse really resonates in our heart well. And it's something we can reflect on again and again. So I just wanted to offer that as if you are not already doing this, this is something, even some prose from some of the instructions from the Buddhist teaching may be something that we would resonate with and reflect on. It doesn't have to be verses. But the idea of delighting in the Dhamma, delighting in the teachings is really important. And it goes in with the diligence, our heedfulness, that this is a quality of appamada. When I was looking up translations, I started looking at the English translation. The heedfulness is to be aware, attentive to something or someone, and giving close and thoughtful attention. So this is the dictionary's explanation of what being heedful is. So that's quite beautiful. And then diligent is constant in effort to accomplish something, attentive and persistent in doing something. And then the word diligent comes from it's an old English term, or it's Middle English, and it comes from Old French through Latin. It's originally Latin. And diligence and diligent, and it comes from diligere, which means to love and take delight in. So when we have a lot of care and love for something, we're diligent, we're heedful, I was reflecting on this, and suppose we have a little puppy. We're not going to neglect the puppy, we're going to care for it, we're going to pay attention to it, we're going to our attention will go towards it. And or if we have a garden and we have little seedlings in the garden, we'll take good care. We'll pay attention. We don't want to neglect caring for it in the proper way. We don't want to give the seedlings too much water or too little water so they'll die, or too much fertilizer or no fertilizer, just the right amount of care and attention, and persistent. We have to be persistent in order for the garden to bear fruit. We have to be patient, persistent, and just be really aware of what's going on. So I also have I want to mention with appamado. There's it's a negation of pamado, and pamado means heedlessness, carelessness, negligence, indolence, and then I could probably go on with the way it's been translated, but that might be enough for now. I think what we want to do is cultivate the appamada. It's a very important word, and it appears in quite a few suttas, and you might not realize that because it is translated quite a lot of different ways. Even the same translator, like Bhante Sujato, will use heedfulness, and he'll use diligence, and most people, I think most commonly it's heedfulness, but also diligence. I think these are the top two ways it's translated, but you get the idea that to apply ourselves well, to be attentive, to be careful. This is an important aspect of the practice in our daily lives, with what we're doing, but also how we're caring for the mind. This we can think of the mind as a precious plant, a very delicate seedling, and we need to care for it well and protect it. Protect the mind, guard the mind well, protect it well, so it can grow strong and wise. So I have I have a sutta that's been translated both by Bhante Bodhi and Bhante Sujato. And this is the Appamada Sutta. And this appears in the Anguttara Nikaya. It's AN 4116. So I see Richard is reaching for his hard copy. So this one, I just have one of the lines in Pali. I just have the English for this. But I'll read Bhante Sujato's translation first. And I looked at Bhante Bodhi's because I wasn't seeing how it was in the fours the way Bhante Sujato has translated it. So he's translated it: mendicants, you should be diligent in 4 situations. What for? Give up bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. So that's 3. And develop good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Don't neglect these things. And this is 4. Give up wrong view and develop right view. Don't neglect this. This is the Lord Buddha speaking to the bhikkhus. A mendicant who has done these things does not fear death in lives to come. So here's Bhante Bodhi's, and it's a little bit different probably than what Richard will see in his in the hard copy, because I just typed it up and I ellipsed it a little bit. Bhikkhus, there are 4 occasions when heedfulness should be practiced. What for? Abandon bodily misconduct and develop good bodily conduct. Do not be heedless in this. Abandon verbal misconduct and develop good verbal conduct. Do not be heedless in this. Abandon mental misconduct and develop good mental conduct. Do not be heedless in this. Abandon wrong view and develop right view. Do not be heedless in this. When a bhikkhu has abandoned and developed these, then they need not fear death in the future. So I condensed it a little bit. You'll see, Richard will see the difference. But he repeats, there's a lot of repetition in the sutta. So I condensed it just slightly. But he's really saying we should not, this is appamada, not being heedless. And through body, speech, and mind. And this is actually an aspect of right effort when we're abandoning the unwholesome through body, speech, and mind, and developing the wholesome of body, speech, and mind. Then this is right effort. This is a shorthand of the 4 right efforts. But then there's also developing the right view, abandoning right view. So this is very essential to the path. This is almost like the entire Eightfold Path really condensed here. This carefulness and attentiveness is actually aspects of sati. This is I've actually seen one translation of diligence. I saw mindfulness, and there, if you're thinking about heedfulness, being carefully attentive, and also just to what you're doing, and then also this delighting in what we're doing, and then having energy for what we're doing, and this is these are kind of the condensed path factors, and then being through body, where there's a right action, and through speech, this right speech, and then the mental components, to develop those mental components. So we need to be diligent in developing the mind, protecting the mind. And so this is right effort, right mindfulness, and then samma samadhi as well. So all this is all condensed, I think, a condensed version of the Noble Eightfold Path. But this is pointing the way how we can be diligent. If we're really focusing on behaviors of body, speech, and mind, and right view, we've got the path right there. So we're saying this appamada appears in a number of places in the suttas. And what came to mind when I was reflecting on this word was the Parinibbana Sutta. And this in the Digha Nikaya. And I was having a hard time online finding it. Like in the book, you can open up and find where the final words of the Buddha and what he was telling. He was saying to the monks, he's addressing the monks, but he's really addressing all of us. And the Pali is Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Apamadena Sampadeta. And there is a sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, and that's SN 6.15, and it's also called the Parinibbana Sutta. And that's in the Brahma Samyutta, which is number 6. And if Richard wants to look it up, or anybody else who wants to look it up, you can look it up online too. So Bhante Sujata has translated that as final extinguishment. So he translates Nibbana as extinguishment. But I just took, it's just an extract even of that sutta. So I'll share this with you. So as you probably most of you know, the Lord Buddha was at Kusinagara, and he was passing away, and everyone knew like for 3 months that he was going to pass away, and then it was really apparent that he was actually passing away. And then he was laying between the 2 sal trees, and there was a gathering of monks and other people, probably bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, and some lay people. And there was he was just laying there peacefully, passing away. And then when it was getting very close to the time, when he knew that it was about time, this is the instruction he gave. Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, and then I'll read the Pali. Attako Bhagawa Bhikkhu Amantesi. Come now, mendicants. I say to you all, Anda Dani Bhikkhave Amantayami Wo. Conditions fall apart. Persist with diligence. Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Apamadena Sampadeta. So Bhante Sujata translated very succinctly, and if you look at the Pali, there isn't all that some people have added to it, but I'll read. Bhante, then these were the realized last words, and Bhikkhu Bodhi translates his last words as, now I address you, bhikkhus. Formations are bound to vanish. Strive to attain the goal with diligence. This was the last utterance of the Tathagata. And then this is Sister Wajira and Francis Story, and I got this off of Access to Insight. Disciples, this I declare to you, all conditioned things are subject to disintegration. Strive on untiringly for your liberation. So maybe, I think Morris Walsh had it slightly different than the other ones too. But this Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Apamadena Sampadeta. So he's talking about, he's passing away. This body is impermanent. This is very apparent, but all conditions, all formations. I think he doesn't say sabe, but I think that's assumed. Conditions, formations are all vanishing. Whatever has the nature to arise passes. This is part of it. And then he's telling us that we should persist with diligence or strive with diligence. Or heedfulness. So this is his last words, and this is how significant this concept is of apamada. And as Ananagarika, this is something that one of the things I remember Ayya Tataloka talking to me about was the difference between pamada and apamada. And I remember struggling to get the two right, because heedful and the heedless. I got it with dyslexia, I got the two confused. But it's very essential to our practice. And so to be taking care, to be persistent, to be attentive, all these qualities that is attributed to this quality that we can be developing. It's very essential. So I invite you all to persist with diligence and be aware of impermanence. So after that, for your reflection and open this up for your thoughts and questions. And Ayya Suvijjana, if you have something that you would like to share?
Yes.
Ayya Suvijjana did this beautiful translation of these verses. She's moved over next to me.
So the story that goes with those Dhammapada verses gives a bit of insight in how we could understand what this apamada really is. It's a story about a queen called Samavati, who was one of the chief queens of King Udena. A certain servant under that queen had gone out and encountered the Buddha and heard a Dhamma talk and immediately obtained stream entry. That servant came back and repeated the teaching to 500 ladies that were inside, you could say, the harem, together with this queen. And the women were all completely taken up with these teachings. This is like, in the old days, this is the first lay meditation group, would be the ladies who were not allowed to go out. But having heard indirectly, they got so much gain and they practiced with tremendous enthusiasm. And they sent that servant out again and again to listen to another Dhamma talk and to come back and repeat the Dhamma talk. And having heard the talk, they memorized the talk. They learned it, they reflected on it, they practiced with it. And then they wanted to see the Buddha, but they were not allowed to go out. So they cut holes in the wall so that when the Buddha came by on the alms round, they could peep through the peek holes and bow and venerate the Buddha. So their faith was so great. Later, there was another queen who was a rival that was full of jealousy, who told lies and was trying to get Samavati to be murdered. So a very violent, rough situation. The king came to be convinced that Samavati and the ladies were disloyal to him. And in anger, he took the royal arrow dipped in poison and commanded Samavati to stand and all of the servants to stand behind her. And he drew the mighty arrow, and it was strong enough to shoot through all of them and to kill all of them. But because they had not one trace of ill will towards the king, that they were perfect in the practice of loving kindness, the arrow did not strike them, but it turned aside. So this is the first case, like they avoided death. This is the metaphor. They avoided death because their practice was so pure that even when threatened with death, even when threatened with violence, not one scintilla of ill will came up in their mind. If they had any chink in the perfection of their loving kindness, they would have been killed. But because their loving kindness was perfect, they were not killed. And then subsequent to that, this other evil rival arranged for the castle to be burned to the ground, and all of the ladies were practicing meditation. And despite the fire, they never got up from their meditation. So some of them attained Sakadagami, some of them obtained Anagami, the levels of enlightenment being once returners or non-returners. And again, this is because of the perfection of the practice. So the lesson I take from that is, it's possible, even if one is convinced about these teachings and has faith in the Buddha, sometimes just out of tiredness or something, we think it would be okay to cut corners in some way. But we should not. That's what this appamada means. Don't cut any corners. And if the unwholesome states come up in the mind, don't tolerate them at all, but find out how to clear off any of those unwholesome states of mind, so that then the wholesome becomes so pure and perfect, like a conch shell with no chink in it, no break in it, and then you're afraid of having any break in your morality or in the purity of your practice, because if there's any chink in the armor, then it could be possible that you could not obtain the deathless.
Thank you, Ayya.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized there was something that, there's a last verse, and this is Bhante Sujata's translation. In the Appamada Vago, I just take a minute to read it, but it says, a mendicant who loves to be diligent, seeing fear and negligence, such a one can't decline and has drawn near to extinguishment, nibbana. So that what you were speaking about is just very much to that point. That it's but I like it because it's the love of really applying ourselves and being careful, and like the ladies that they're doing it out of appreciation for something, out of love for the Dhamma, out of love for the Buddha. They've devoted themselves in such a way, and so that I like to bring that delighting or devotion or is a part of the appamada. So can if there are questions or comments that people would like to share, you're welcome. If I can change the view. Can I get this to gallery? So I can see. And I think if someone puts their hand up virtually, I see one hand somewhere. Dilshin, you have a hand? Yes?
Excuse me. Yes, Ayya. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you, Ayya. Well, thank you for this wonderful teaching today about Appamada. I'm a big fan, very big fan of the word Appamada. When you said Appamada, I went down memory lane to the point where I was like maybe 10, 11 years. I remember being in the Sunday school, one day, and we were taught this particular teaching by Buddha, which he repeatedly said in his teachings. I'm going to say that in my native language, then I try to translate that in into English, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So what it says is, hisa gini gannek ema ginna nivanna darana utsahaya wagema apramadi venna කියලා. That's what it says. What it essentially means is, suppose your head is on fire, the very first thing that you want to do is to extinguish that fire. That is the type of effort you have to put into your path towards Nibbana. So something that, always, going on in my head, and also when it comes to perseverance, heedfulness, diligence, and so on and so forth, there are certain paramis that Buddha himself, fulfilled, like, Aditthana paramita, Muga Pak, there's this something called Temiya Jataka, which talks about how we fulfill that Aditta paramita. Then the Virya paramita is another paramita which he fulfilled. The story can be found in the Mahajanaka Jataka, in the 550 Jataka stories. So, and also when it comes to determination, heedfulness, perseverance, and everything, you don't have to look beyond our teacher, Buddha himself, right? Starting from the sixth period of self-mortification up until the point where one day he sat down under the Bodhi tree with a firm resolve that unless I attain Buddhahood, I'm not going to stand up. I mean, when I say that, I get goosebumps. So I just want to add my sentiments. Thank you. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Welcome.
If you can take your hand away, I'll see if there's anyone. There's a comment. For Richard? Oh, Richard?
Thank you. Just one quick mention. That reference to Buddha sitting down with that resolve that, even if his blood dries up and his bones, turn to dust and blow away, he's not gonna get up. But it means he's attained such a resolve that within that one night he is going to attain nirvana. So we should not artificially think that, okay, I'm going to sit down with this resolve and everything. And what I mean by artificially is that, if you're not sufficiently developed enough and ready for such a thing, and then later on in that sutta about a single excellent night, and again, there's that reference in one night, when all the different arahants and Ananda describe what they would think of as a single excellent night. Then the Buddha says, well, if one sits down with this resolve, I'm going to sit down. So, but again, it's because within that time period of that evening, you have developed and cultivated yourself so much that, you're going to make it, you're ready to go. And the other thing, I really like that word diligence. that you were using and going back to the root, where it's not just like a concentration, like a complete concentration and awareness of your work, but it's also a loving attitude towards it. And you can see when you look at history, the modern world is a little bit different, but you know, like wealthy people used to have servants in their homes, and those servants would actually live there in the home, almost like family members. And they would take their work very, very seriously and really want to do a good job generally. I mean, there's always some exception. Because in those societies, if you were to be fired, you have no place to go. You have no place to live. They usually don't get paid that much money that they're going to have like excess savings or anything. So, you know, they're very happy, you know, to be there in that home with food and clothing and shelter and everything else. So in the same way, in the Dhammapada, that verse, I have a translation here. I don't remember exactly which yours was, but and enjoy the resort of the noble ones. Okay, so here the word resort is gochara. It really means a cow pasture. Go means cow, and chara is like their, you know, where they live to get their sustenance and everything, and they wander around in that, right? So your mind should be such that you really enjoy, you know, this, like with diligence, you know, you really love, you know, the Buddhist teaching, thinking about the Dharma, conforming yourself, you know, in relationship to that, right? And so, because that's the resort of the noble ones, you know, so you're actually qualifying yourself like the cow. He enjoys being in his pasture. There's plenty of food and water and other things, right? So it's like that's where he wants to be, you know, or she wants to be. It doesn't matter. So so like that, you know, it's that. So diligence is kind of an interesting word in that sense, you know. If you look at it in that sense, you know, if you take in that kind of like loving feeling in your approach to Buddhism, you know, you shouldn't be torturing yourself or anything. It should just be a spontaneously good, you know, movement, you know, towards, you know, your liberation. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, what you're talking about, Arya non gochare rata, and the rata is the delighting, so that it's within that. It's understood that this is part of it. Is it's enjoying or delighting and rejoicing. It talks about rejoicing too. I open had the word rejoice. They rejoice in heedfulness, delighting in the noble one's resort. I mean, it's so beautiful. So that gives us the energy, you know. It's not like just putting your nose to the grind or forcing yourself. We're doing it out of love and the joy of it, and it's just like you know, like a cook would be putting all his or her heart into what they're doing. You know, when they're preparing a meal, they're doing a lot of care and consideration and joy and doing something not just for other people, but the actual. I used to cook, but so there's this interest and joy in doing creating something and doing it really well, and the care of making sure that it doesn't burn. It's not too hot, it's not too, like not too low of a flame, not too high of a flame. It's just like you're really putting your heart into something like that. And then you have something to to share with others once you've finished. So there's that kind of joy I in our practice, is that we're really working internally as well as externally. That we put our care into everything, our mindfulness and our consideration and what we do through body, speech, and mind. And this is that heedfulness, that care. See, are there more comments or? So we've come to time. So I hope, I encourage you to, I know Richard is quite devoted to contemplating the suttas and, but also the verses as well, just to take even just a line of the teaching and really contemplate it and really consider it deeply, and giving yourself time for that, and maybe memorizing some verses or some words in the suttas. So I offer that for your consideration, and may you all rejoice in diligence, and we can pay our respects to the Buddha. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you.